Stick fighting is a local martial art that traces its roots to Western Africa and has taken hold on these shores. Similar in both origin and development, though not in execution, to capoeira, Barbadian stick licking, and Haitian fencing, while there is growing interest in stick fighting, there is also rising tension between fighters and the government agency tasked with its development. Sorini Gray and senior cameraman Timothy Chasto looks at how two events in 2020, including the unsolved murder of one of its best practitioners, as a symbol of the conflict.
Within the last 10 years, it seems that stick fighting is moving out of the shadows into the light. People are flocking to the various competition in numbers that has the organizers scrambling to accommodate them. However, there is growing concern that not enough is being done to consider the men everyone is coming to see, the stick fighters themselves.
The basketball court in St. Mary's is the site of many a gael, and it is where the NCC kicked off their 2020 competitive season. This was the crowd at the Arima Velodrome for the semi-finals. Trinidad was one of the few places to celebrate Carnival that year, and stick fighting is becoming one of the most popular events on the NCC calendar of events. But then this happened.
Well, it so happened that we have stick fighting, and persons were here since 7 o'clock this evening, and to this time nothing has started. So a lot of patrons would like to have their monies back, but there seems to be an impasse between NCC and the stick fighters. So we're just waiting to get back our monies.
The situation almost escalated to the point where one was more likely to see Bois at the gates of the Velodrome than the actual Gael, where the night's competition was supposed to take place. But how did we get here? As Jones said earlier, there was an issue surrounding the payment of fees to the fighters. Ian Brown of the Newtown Boys Gael explains.
Well, the reason for not fighting tonight is because it's the lack of funding. Because the players was promised that for the preliminaries and the final, they are going to get some form of payment. And they came up tonight and told us that there will not be no payment for no one.
In stick fighting, a gael means both the stage or the ring where the fight takes place. It also means a team of stick fighters. For NCC competitions, a team or a gael is made up of a manager and 3 fighters. For ending the preliminaries, each gael earned $3,800, and payment was due at the semi-finals in Arima.
The audience is ready, and everything is ready. We are just waiting on the guys. They will have to draw for the fights. So please, bear with us. You know, we might be having some problems with transport, etc. So, in a little bit, we are hoping that we'll be on our way.
But what actually happened was that the checks were left in Port of Spain in error, and that was the beginning of the end. In talking to some of the fighters on the night, there was a real concern that the NCC was not treating them fairly, and that despite their skill, they aren't respected and are underpaid. And that, in part, has fueled their anger.
That money, that just ain't nothing. 100,000 car, house. They don't call me pipers already. Give me something, uplift way. Give me game, give me sport, uplift way.
Rondell Benjamin of Bois Academy agrees. We had spoken to him in 2020. He said the money being paid does not compensate them for the risks they take.
But if I break my finger or I get hit, I can't work, which is around $350 is the price for a day laborer. There's no insurance, no safety mechanism, no structure.
Eventually, the NCC cancelled the 2020 competition, saying the fighters were being unreasonable.
Sure, but the checks were ready, they're still ready.
We spoke to the NCC chairman, Winston Gypsy Peters, the day after the competition was cancelled. He complained then that the fighters kept moving the goalpost. Just over a year later, we caught up with the NCC's commissioner with responsibility for regional carnival, Darian Marcel, seen here on the night negotiating with the fighters. Now, in an exclusive interview with Unspun, Marcel says they did all they could to resolve the issue.
You're talking about payments for the preliminaries, and it's guaranteed, so it could have been made the next day and so on, but they wanted it now. I don't know what triggered that. And the staff member went for it and brought it, and we made the payments, and I was prepared to take up the expense of the maxis for them and any inconvenience. We did all that we could have. But there was this continuous demand, and why? We brought sponsors on board. We increased the prices as best we can across the board. And it was a work in progress, but we could only give what we have, right? And we can't give, somebody come and say, well, in a meeting, we want prizes just like the Calypso King of the World on the finals of the night. Really? But who put them that in their head? Yeah? Not realistic. But for some reason, and I respect it, how they see themselves, but you have to earn that.
Marcel says the current levels of sponsorship for their stick fighting events do not yet allow for an increase in prize money, but suggests there is an opportunity for private promoters to work on making the competitions more attractive to sponsors, viewers, and ultimately the fighters themselves. The stick fighting community had barely recovered from that blow when, a few months later, on June 21st, champion stick fighter David Matthew Brown was killed in a domestic dispute. In a grim foreshadowing of his death, his image was used by the NCC to advertise the aborted semi-finals in Arima. He was shot and killed in the presence of a woman the police report identified as his wife. Brown was shot in the chest and died at the scene. The murder of David Brown is as typical and as atypical in the way these things always are. Every victim has a story that makes an open and shut case more complex than originally thought, once you care to look below the surface. The investigation is being led by ASP Figaro, and no suspects have yet been identified. Brown lived and eventually died in Moruga. Moruga is the home of many of the country's best stick fighters. But on a typical day, you may not see any sign of stick fighting unless you know where to look. The St. Mary's basketball court was quiet when we visited. But when the drums start to call and the chantwells start to sing, the mood changes and the energy of Kalinda takes over, transforming the space.
Tell them all this stink and dirty.
For Brown, moving stick fighting into the mainstream was his goal. This is him in the official lyric video for Bushead by Marshall Montano and Bunji Garlin. After news of his death was confirmed, Montano took to his Instagram account to offer tribute, calling him one of the greatest stick fighters in Trinidad and Tobago and thanking him for his tutelage. Bunji Garlin took to the comments to also offer tribute. During his life, Brown worked with various people and organizations, including jazz artist Etienne Charles, the American Museum, and the Lloyd Best Institute. Rondell Benjamin of the Bois Academy is a former student of Brown who created the academy with another of Brown's former students, Keegan Taylor. Bois Academy is on a mission to restore stick fighting or Kalinda to its rightful place in our nation's cultural landscape. Brown served as its Kalinda elder and advisor until his untimely passing. Brown's last student, Jamie Filbert, now serves as the director or pointer of Bois Academy. She describes Brown as larger than life. Unspun spoke to her on the 22nd of July.
It's been 1 year, 1 month, and 1 day. So this is very interesting because those ones mean something, right? And it's not just 1-1. There's 3 different ones, and 3 is a very important number inside of Kalinda.
Filbert describes Kalinda as a philosophy that includes stick fighting, which she prefers to call Bois or Kalinda, and Brown was to her its greatest mystic. She says despite his transition, he continues to direct things from the ancestral realm. Brown had many names: King David, Acid. Filbert also said he was very specific in how he described himself. He did not use the term stick fighter, preferring the term Bois man.
Because there was a distinction that he made between that and an understanding that he was a king, that he was a god in his own rights. And he was also someone that understood medicine. He was someone that understood people and spirit and humanity in a particular sort of way. So he means the world to me. It's been part of my work before he passed away to get people across the globe to know what his contributions has been to Kalinda, and the level of brilliance that is enacted inside of his body.
This is an interview recorded with Brown in 2019 by Keegan Taylor, co-founder of Bois Academy. Taylor is also one of the producers of Bushead by Marshall and Bungie.
Matthew Brown, better known as King David, better known as Acid.
What do you do?
I'm an instructor in Shintech Village.
How long have you been involved in stick fighting?
I've been involved in stick fighting for the past 20 to 25 years.
How long have you been teaching stick fighting?
I've been teaching stick fighting for about 10, maybe, about 10 years, 12 years. I enjoy seeing, some people come with, with them tell themselves they know and, all the glory and the dishonorable ways, and when they get into stick, they realize, hey, it's something like if I didn't get it, I wouldn't be feeling and getting to be the person that I am.
Roger Sambry is the reigning king of the rock. He won the title in 2019.
Me and Acid train.
He says Brown, also known as Acid, was very supportive of his development as a stick fighter.
This last year before he died, he stand up with me. We got me arrow. Me, Acid and Raymond. And everybody backing. Everybody backing in me arrow. You remember? Next year, he come and he die. It would make my heart in.
And he's still holding on to the lessons learned in that session.
And the shot where I practice with Acid, me and Lego that yet. So yeah, them stick man ain't know what I come from yet.
Raymond De Leon is Acid's cousin.
2019, Acid real perform. Like I don't know, like sometime in life when people know they're going to meet their maker, you just see a sign. And 2019, Acid real perform, and me support Roger Sambry real good because what he had done, he inspired Roger that he could go forward more, right?
Sambry won the King of the Rock title in 2019. Because the competition was cancelled in 2020, he remains the reigning title holder. We asked if he was concerned that the dispute between the fighters and the NCC was signaling the beginning of the end of stick fighting.
Stick fighting got out in Trinidad. Because when I went out in America, yeah, the amount of youths I see want to play. I'm so excited.
Plus, there seems to be growing mainstream support for the indigenous fighting style.
The people at Trinidad, which is the supporters who come and watch stick fighting, I respect it. But on the committee, NCC, me I feel so, because then the grade we low,
Again, here's Jamie Filbert.
With NCC, I feel that, again, I'll say that there is a lot to learn, and you cannot want to control a space. And the reality of it, you cannot control a Gael. A Gael is a cosmos. So if you come in and you try to control that cosmos, attempt to do so, you will end up in a lot of nonsense and conflict that you won't know how to deal with because you don't understand the thing that you're dealing with. If you understand Kalinda, she will direct you through the conflict.
When we spoke to Darren Marcel, it was clear that there remains a reluctance within the NCC to engage with Kalinda competitively.
The NCC will never not be involved in stick fighting, but the question is in what role, yeah? Because stick fighting, as I say, is part of our culture, a very important and critical part of our culture. So we're not going to turn our back on stick fighting under any circumstances. The question is where will we be involved?
But he assures that they remain committed to supporting its development, which would make Brown happy as he spent a lot of time teaching Kalinda to students of all ages.
This is my son, and he loves it. And I wouldn't object him from playing it. You understand? Because it's part, come from generation, right? From your grandfather to me, come so. I don't have a problem if he ain't a stick fighter. So therefore, I try to tell a stick fighting can't done. You understand? He have the blood in him.
Over a year later, justice is yet to be served in the murder of David Matthew Brown, and the situation with stick fighting in Trinidad and Tobago remains in limbo. From Beyond the Grave, David Brown sums up what stick fighting or Kalinda should mean to this country.
Stick fighting, and to me, is a teacher by itself, and it teach discipline, tolerance, and production. So this is why I enjoy stick fighting.
Thanks so much for joining us on this edition of Unspun. This is the last episode for this season, but we'll be back again in late September with a fresh batch of stories. Remember, if you have any story tips for Unspun, please ensure you drop us an email at unspun@cnc3.co.tt or call us at 800-CNC3. Until then, have a good one, and remember, be the change you want to see in the world. And please remember to stay safe.